Warning: the following podcast contains graphic language that Nancy Reagan and Tipper Gore deemed inappropriate in a civilized society. Maybe your kid should be outside playing in the sunshine rather than listening to adult language on a podcast. But hey, I won't tell you how to raise your kids. Religions and governments and vapid hosts of mainstream media opinion shows are better suited for that job, I suppose. It takes a village to wash your brain. Am I right?
We're here to talk about the political environment and kind of what it means. Some of us are going to have our own views. These are our private views, while all three of us are contributors to our voice in one way or another. Our views don't necessarily represent our voice as a whole, but we also want to make sure that you are aware that we do have a bias. Every person has a bias, and hopefully you'll know that we wear our bias on our sleeve. That way you don't feel like we're trying to deceive you in any way.
Hey there, friends. Today's episode's called Bits and Bytes. That's because I've taken bits and bytes of different thoughts coming out of Josh Cameron, Jessie Cheney, and myself, Chris Garud. I hope you enjoy it, and do remember, this is all never-before-heard content, so it's completely filter-free. Let's start things off with Jessie's opinion on socialism.
Socialism, this is my opinion, could be totally wrong, so be it. Let's go back and look at history. We're still dealing with the baby boomer generation. People call them the greatest generation because they dealt with Hitler, they did World War II, it's fine, whatever. But let's look at it from a historical point of view, okay? In the era of World War II, you had all that shit that went on, mass war, everything else. Take the conspiracy theories out of it. Let's just go with what we were taught as history as being true. That generation that dealt with it, socialism was scary, okay? You had an entire country that suddenly turned ravenous pit bull in Europe on the rest of their fellow Europeans. That would be the Germans, okay? They would be considered, I don't know if it would be considered socialist or not, but they had the Nazis that were saying that it's not our fault, it's these guys, it's that guys, it's, we World War I, we got our asses handed to us, and all that other stuff. They would be most fearful of that word socialism because that would bring rise to someone being in power to commit World War III. And then even historical after what happened in World War II between the US and Russia. How the hell do you go from being allies in a war to within, I think it was less than 10 years, suddenly now deadlocked Cold War era enemies? So you look at that was communism. They were afraid of communism because it was the government said, you have to work for me. You have to go and work at this factory for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, and that is your responsibility as a good Russian. You're not getting paid. We'll feed you. We'll clothe you. But you can't exceed beyond what we tell you can be. That's what communism is. That's, in my sense, what I've been taught my entire life is what communism is. It's anti-capitalism, where in this society of being quote-unquote capitalist, you can strive to be anything you want. If you wanted to be started off as a dishwasher and you've got a great idea and you become an inventor, now you can become a millionaire. In a communist country, that's really not possible. So I get that. But you got to remember is history's a little bit different when you grow up in the States. I remember the Red Scare. I don't remember it because it happened way before my time, but I remember learning about the Red Scare in history class. And to me, that was nothing more than a political witch hunt, where you would have literally people come in and have to sit in front of a congressional committee and answer accusations of them being communist spies or being communist or this, that, the other. Because, we're in the States and we don't follow communism, and if you're going to be a commie, then you can't be in the United States. even though realistically all of that stuff is technically a violation of your First Amendment rights. So to try to stop an ideology from gaining ground, they would then turn around and use that ideology against people saying, well, you're a communist. Look at McCarthyism. That's all that was. I mean, there were people from every aspect. There were industrialists that were, you know, and after the fact, and once people kind of calmed down about it, then you saw how it was used as a witch hunt. Hollywood, there were rival studios in Hollywood during this era that, well, they're doing much better in their films than we are. Well, what if we accuse them of being communists? Now they have to go in front of Congress, and it was televised for the most part, or it's public record. I mean, if I remember correctly, we actually executed 2 people for being communist spies, even though they weren't. And that's the same thing. I mean, it's the idea of socialism, where everyone is together and the government helps everyone and everything else. And it's funny because in the States, America, they don't want socialism. But the government wants a say into how you get an abortion. The government wants a say into whether you can have an abortion. The government wants a say in how my kid is educated, other than the scientific standard, which is what public schools should be pushing. But now they want to bring in a religious ideology of creationism. Well, you know, kids should be taught both. No. You want your kid to learn a religious concept, you send them to a religious school.
So I filed for local school board. That is Granger District 6, where I live. And I'd been hemming and hawing. I know that I don't really have time to put a whole lot of attention into it right now. I might after July, once I graduate from school. So I hadn't actually expected to do this. And yet, you know, I follow a lot of political Facebook groups, and one of those is the Salt Lake County Progressive Caucus. And one of those people within the Salt Lake County Progressive Caucus, rather the chair, is a woman by the name of Elizabeth Payne. I'll be goddamned if she isn't stick to her guns and isn't a legit progressive. She's gone out of her way to protect me, not necessarily like jump in front of a bullet, but I have a lot of hillbots that'll attack me when I raise very interesting and legitimate points about the corruption within the Democratic Party, and she's coming to my defense more than once. She also went to see Sam Ronan speak when he came through Utah, after we all heard about that rambunctious son of a bitch who called Tom Perez out on the DNC's corruption. Well, anyway, so I file. Apparently, they update the filing in real time, because I had somebody in the Salt Lake Progressive Caucus like 15 minutes later. I said, "Woo! You know, you filed! Yay!" It's like, oh crap, I got a stalker. And 30 minutes later, not even 30 minutes later, I got a ping on Facebook Messenger, and it's Karen Winder. Well, Karen Winder is the wife of Mike Winder. Mike Winder is the former mayor of my city, West Valley. He's also a current Congress member, or state House member, and he was in the news last year because he is either last year or 2016, because he keeps creating pseudonyms, been caught like 3 times by WikiLeaks, because he tries to expunge unethical behavior that's captured on WikiLeaks, that's legit and true, in order to suggest that he didn't actually do it. Well, Karen Winder is his wife. Karen Winder was the one who filed for my local school board unopposed. So then I immediately filed, and now it's not unopposed. And so she pings me, asks me to call her. She gives me her number. You know, I ask her if I can, tell her I'm busy at work, ask her if I can call her closer to like 2, which is, 3 hours later. So I end up giving her a call. And she's immediately defensive, but not an asshole about it, but definitely worried. I just want to know, was there something that I did? well, fuck, I don't know. Was there something you did? Was there something that I did? What's kind of your motivation for getting involved? And, I told her, look, I really want to do what I can to put emphasis on an evidence-based curriculum. I also want to be able to see what I can do to help kids understand that, disagreeing is vital. That we can be friends with people who we disagree with. And, as I also understand, the school board has had some dumpster fires when they've invited people to come speak to the school for school assemblies. And so because of that, the school board now makes the decision, not the school itself. And so now I would have the ability to have a little bit better guard on, idiots who go up and try to talk to kids. I was very respectful. I kept a calm tone. I didn't swear at all. I was proud of myself. I didn't swear at all. And so, she starts throwing out these just bullshit, philosophically meaningless lines that most prejudice at least white people do. And the reason why I say that is West Valley is about 50% white and 50% other minorities, whether it be Latino, Polynesian, Asian. So West Valley is incredibly diverse. So she tells me, well, you know what the most common response I get when I tell people that my kids go to Granger? Oh. And so she set it up for me and teed up that exact thing twice, because I asked her to clarify. And so she said the exact same thing twice. I wasn't sure that I heard her, but I did the first time. And so she repeated herself. Well, do you know what? Do you know what people tell me when I tell them that my kids go to Granger? Oh. As if I'm supposed to then lead to, oh, you're such a good person. Well, and then she says, I love diversity. My kids don't even see color. And this is where I pushed back. I felt I was respectful. I had a nice tone. But I told her, so this is where I feel the exact nature of the problem is that we should see color. We should see differences. We act like people are the same, but they're not. We should see their differences, and we should embrace them because of them. And then she kind of started stumbling over words and backpedaling, and by this point, it was like a 6-minute conversation. I really had no interest in hearing her try to save herself. So I said, you know what, Karen, it's actually been really nice talking to you. And she said, yeah, it's nice talking to you too. Well, you know what, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Karen. And so I let her go. And so, I frazzled her. I made her nervous. And then I ended the conversation so she couldn't redeem herself. And so now she has to be pissed thinking about how she wasn't able to redeem herself. And so, maybe I'm finding a niche here as far as making local Utah politicians uncomfortable. And they fucking should be.
Exactly. In fact, we're going to create if we can get that done, we can create a stronghold that then has to be broken down by the people who currently hold the power. And that's something right back to what I like to write a lot is that the government is not the bad guy. And we've been down this road for at least 40 years now, where people like to say the government and they leave it at that. It's kind of a dumbed down version of who you're really mad at, but it's just an apparatus. It's there for us to wield. It's been getting manipulated for probably good on 100 years now by a group of people who want nothing but shit for you and me. They don't want us to prosper. They just want to prosper on our backs. And that's why they're using it. So get mad at the right people out there, everybody. Don't be mad at the government. Get mad at the people who took the government away from you.
Mm-hmm. Or better yet, be mad at the government and replace it. The key is to do something. Something has to be done. It's not sustainable. I mean, people bitch about climate change and this, that, the other. They don't understand that our country is on the cusp of the worst climate change ever. And that's going to be a complete and total domination of the 1% over the rest of the country. And they're not going to hide. They're not going to hide.
Socio-political climate change. I see what
exactly.
you're getting at.
And they're not hiding anymore. They're not making it sneaky. They're not. They at least in the past had the courtesy to at least
hide. They're not hiding anymore.
Well, and
They're
actually,
just blatantly
in the
hiding.
past, that they it wasn't hard to hide because they didn't have the internet and people talking to each other and showing videos of what they see with their phones and their cameras.
Yeah.
But that's where the net neutrality thing really is. I mean, they might say, you don't want government to control what you get to see. Actually, I do, because if I get to be the government, then I know I'm going to do the right thing. But if I let some corporation get involved, they're going to do whatever it is that's going to give them more money, because that's their only goal in the whole world. They're the only persons out there, which I'd love to be able to take that away, that only care about their narcissists. In fact, that's what they have to be, right? So they don't care about everybody else, and they don't care about their neighbors. But yeah, without the internet being neutral, they could actually go right back to hiding in plain sight and pulling all this shit, and none of us finding out about it, because they can just, with a flick of a switch, they can just shut you off.
Yep, and then you have to go back to standing on the corner in a rain slicker in July, screaming about the end is near. We all know how that works out. I think I'm one of the only people that look at him and go, "Shit, does he know something I don't?"
I give that guy a slice of pizza every now and then.
Oh yeah.
So I went to my caucus night last night, found my precinct 72, sat down, was the only one there for a little while. There were about 4 people who showed up for precinct 71. Then another gentleman showed up for my precinct. He and I got to talking, and ended up, I still retain my precinct chair position. He said he'd vote for me after talking to me. And then, so it was only a 2-person vote. I voted for me, so I got it. But since there are 2 delegate spots to give out, since there are only 2 people who showed up, then we got, the 2 of us became delegates. Well, the annoying thing is, in order to verify that you are, in that precinct, there's a voter list. So you look at the voter list, and guess what? The voter list is literally in random order. The names aren't alphabetical, the addresses aren't grouped together, they're not numerical in any fashion, they're literally random. It appears either they sorted it by van number, which is meaningless, or they sorted, when they scraped the data, they sorted it by House District and Precinct District, which, okay, well, every single one in House District 34 and Precinct 72 are in House District 34 and Precinct 72. So that was freaking meaningless and pointless. And come to find out, I went and talked to the volunteers, and I was like, who did this? The sheer ineptitude is almost mind-blowing. Like, this is, I get that this is kind of a small thing, kind of, but like to overlook, like it was printed out in a table with cells. Like somebody printed off an Excel spreadsheet or some sort of spreadsheet. Spreadsheets have functions. There's literally a function that says sort. It's the click of a button, and then you qualify it by, do you want to sort by your, headers? Yes or no? And do you want to sort ascending or descending? Like, it's that difficult. It takes all of maybe 10 seconds to sort. 10 seconds. They literally did no sorting. I sent out a tweet about it, took a screenshot of that tweet, and put a Facebook post about it. Somebody else said that they ran into the same thing. So somebody outside of my precinct, outside of my caucus location. So it sounds like this may have been a Salt Lake County-wide thing. And guess who it came from? So the executive director of the Salt Lake County Democrats is a woman by the name of Bonnie Billings. I am not a very big fan of Bonnie Billings because she's one of those hillbots that, since I say, hey, you know what? I'm a former Army soldier. I've been to war. I don't like war. Hillary Clinton is asking for more war. I don't like Hillary Clinton. Well, you're just a Bernie bro and must be a misogynist. Fucking what? When Bernie came to visit April 21st of last year for the farce of a unity tour, I posted a video that I watched of Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore was speaking to a millennial feminist that was unpacking a bunch of lies about that a boomer feminist told about Bernie. And so I posted this video and said, this is the type of feminist I am. Bonnie Billings and two of her toady friends, one consequently who works for the UCLA, UCLA, I'm dumb, the ACLU, and sorry, I'm driving, and kind of lost my train of thought. So she works for ACLU, and she's also somebody who attacks me for being a Bernie bro, because I don't like Hillary, still don't like Hillary, didn't like Hillary at the time, and so they started attacking me because I posted this video. So finally I get to the point, it's like, what is it about this video that you find disagreeable? What did Bonnie Billings say after attacking me for, I was playing, responding, so back and forth for about a half hour, 45 minutes, I would say, 3 or 4 different responses. I didn't watch that garbage. So you're attacking me for a video of which you have no idea what it says. You just assume that since I'm a Bernie bro that you're going to hate it, so you're just going to preemptively attack me. And now, this person who's shown herself to be utterly worthless shows herself to be utterly inept. Are you fucking kidding me? Excel spreadsheet or some sort of spreadsheet at the table. There are cells. They printed it off, and they literally could have sorted, but failed to do so. Failed to think, spreadsheet. How do we make spreadsheet data usable? My God. Like, there's no technology. If you don't know how to use Excel in that limited function, there's no technology in the world that's going to help you out. No wonder why Republicans win all the time. The Democrats are nowhere near as organized, by an order of magnitude more disorganized. And it seems that the Republicans are an order of magnitude more competent, which is fucking insane. Have you seen the Republican Party and how crazy they are? That is incredible. And so it's just mind-blowing to me that this bubble. Salt Lake County is also the one who, while I like certain aspects of Kathy Allen, I think Kathy Allen was probably the worst candidate to vote for in CD3 during the special election. And yet they were the ones who overwhelmingly were like, Kathy Allen, yay! Because everybody else in CD3 will hate her except for us here in Salt Lake, yay! And they just live in their fucking bubble. Oh, we know you? Sure. You can be our executive director and you're fucking stupid. And you don't know how to use fucking Microsoft Excel? And you're an executive director? Are you kidding me? Like, it blows my mind. Stapp's Law. I was talking about how the Trump administration is the intersectionality of Stapp's Law and Dunning-Kruger. Dunning-Kruger being that you're so dumb that you don't realize that you're dumb because it takes a certain amount of intelligence to know that you're dumb. And therefore you're typically supremely confident in everything that you do because you're so dumb. That's Dunning-Kruger. Stapp's Law is the universal aptitude for ineptitude makes any human accomplishment an incredible miracle. So I'd say that the Trump administration is this intersectionality. Seems like Utah Democrats might be like, well, maybe you should hold my beer. I don't think that they quite have done anything as stupid as the Trump administration, but my God, if you want your delegates that are voting for, they're going to be voting for themselves, voting for others, so that we can get this next 2 years worth of delegates, and you want them to find themselves on a list of data, maybe you should make it accessible for them to find themselves on that list of data. So I spent 10 minutes on this disorganized list of data to find out I wasn't there. I've lived in my house, been a registered voter since I've lived in my house, lived in the same location for 4 years. And actually, you know what? No, 5 years. Lived in the same location for 5 years. This March made 5 years. The other guy who was there did the same thing I did. Spent 10 minutes looking for him, and he couldn't find himself because he wasn't there. So not only is it fucking disorganized, they don't even have the active voter rolls. Like, my God, the ineptitude is insane. So, go Bonnie Billings. You attack me because you have your ideas are vacuous, you have no ideas of your own, and you can only play identity politics because that's all establishment Democrats have, and then you're fucking stupid on top of it. My God, this is the leadership of the Salt Lake County. I mean, like, why Why don't we just put a close sign on the door? You're not welcome, closed. Man, we're dumb. We're inept. We won't be able to do anything. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm making too big of a deal out of it, but it blew me away. Just that something that's that important. Again, it may seem like a small thing, but that's a pretty important thing to organize this data so people can find themselves, to verify that they really do live in the precinct they think they live in. And it's that disorganized and people are missing. And that's pretty important. Pretty important.
Is I'm part of this, I like this. It's not a matter of like. People need to understand that it is an important thing when you start talking about politics. And for too long, people have been asleep. That's because they're focused on getting through the day, getting enough food to feed someone, getting enough money to pay their bills, getting enough of this. But the people who are in power are the people who don't struggle with that. Don't get me wrong, a lot of politics and a lot of politicians have come from, not super wealthy families, not this, not that. But it always seems to go the same way. You get someone in, they get a little bit of power, then they get this, then they get that, and then the next thing you know, they're taking money for this, they're taking money for that, they're getting lobbyists, they're doing this. Every congressional guy who's in office, anyone who sits there and takes an appointment from a lobbyist, and then turns around and gets a donation, you can't tell me that's not a bribe. It's exactly what the word bribe means. I give you A, you do this for me. But it's no different, and people gotta stop doing that whole. It's a lot like a sports team. People don't realize there's no difference between the Falcons or the Dolphins or the this or the that, but they like to create that division. I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm a Cubs fan. I'm a this. I'm a that. No, you are just like everyone else who likes to watch people play a sport. You're a sports fan. Yet there's division. There's division among it, and that's what people don't understand. Division does not equal competitiveness. You can be competitive and still work together. That's what they do on a sports team. Do you really think that people who like the 49ers are going to sit there and turn around, or the people who play for the 49ers? They're competitive against other people who play in a sport, but they're still part of the same thing. But when it comes to politics, people like to put that division in there. Well, I'm a Republican. Okay, well, why are you a Republican? Well, I think what they value is the same with me, and it's the same with this, and it's the same with that. Oh, okay. But you look at the track record. The Republicans have always been very conservative, very into limiting what people can do, whether it's religion, whether it's their body, whether it's abortion, whether it's this, whether it's that. They like to sit there and say, we have control over the masses. Why is it that Republicans, if you go back throughout history, look at Ronald Reagan. His idea to help and to deal with the mental health issue in the States was to close asylums and just throw them all into the public. That didn't work. Okay, so what's the next option? Well, the next option is you start getting money from Big Pharma. Let's push Prozac through and get people on Prozac and get people on this and get people on that. Depressed, don't feel good about yourself. Here, take a pill. Oh, by the way, the side effects of this pill may make you more suicidal than you originally were and make you homicidal at the same thing, but we're not 100% sure. It's a big boy law. The Republicans love the big boy law. Big boy law states that, hey, as long as we tell you up front that there are side effects and that there's this and that there's that, you're a big boy, you can make your decision on that matter. But they're the first to write and they're the first to rewrite drug laws to keep people who take drugs, marijuana, whatever, in jail for longer. But it's a big boy law if you want to take a pill for, shaky leg syndrome that's going to cause you to grow a vagina on the back of your head. But hey, you knew that going in, so that's the big boy law. But it's all the same thing, and people gotta stop that division. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. If you are there for everyone. But they're not. They're there for themselves. They're there for their special interests. They're there to stay in power. And don't get me wrong, if you're a politician and that's your, I'm a political politician, that's all I've ever wanted to be, that's fine. But you got to remember is, why did you get into politics in the first place? If you got into politics to become a millionaire, okay, fine. But at least be fucking honest about it. Be bought, be paid for. Highest bid wins, that kind of thing, that's fine. But then don't ask the rest of us to vote for you. Don't come every 4 years and talk about how you're a man of the people and you're a man of this and, I'm here, I hear your pain, I'm listening to what you say, and just get me back into office, I'll do better this time. Then you get back into office and it's business as usual. Oh, what's this? Nestle wants to come in and take 57 billion gallons of water out of a reservoir that's supposed to feed an entire city, and you're going to sell it to them for $1 a gallon, but that's only going to profit you and Nestle? Go right ahead. That's great. That's not for the people, that's for you. And that is what happens when people keep that division going. I'm a Republican. Okay? You really think all the people that voted for Donald Trump and got their hat and did this and did that? I'm not saying that they're bad. They bought into the scam. Do you think the people in West Virginia feel any better about how Donald Trump came in and he said he was going to make more jobs and get West Virginia back working, or wherever the hell it was? Are they back working? Did he live up to the promise that he made? No. And that's the other thing that we got to get out of. It's a mindset. In one sense, you've got people saying, well, politicians lie. Everyone knows that. Then why do you vote for a politician? If you know they lie, because you're buying into the grand illusion that, oh, well, my voice matters, but once every 4 years, or once every 2 years, or only when they need to be reelected. Why don't they hold them accountable? If I went to a car lot and the guy said, this is the best car we've ever had, it's got, 7 miles on it and the best transmission, it's got a warranty, and it's got this and it's got that. I buy that car and drive it off the lot, make it a half a block, and the transmission blows up. Well, come to find out the odometer's been turned back, and this, that, the other. I can then turn around and go and sue to get my money back, or to get him to take his vehicle back. It's a lemon law. Not every state has it, but a lot of states do. But it used to be, well, people said, well, you bought a used car from a used car salesman. They lie. Why can we hold them responsible when they're caught lying, but we can't hold a politician responsible? Because they want that division in there. They want to keep the best of both worlds. You knew I was a politician when you voted for me, and we all know politicians lie. We'll start holding them accountable. Why don't they pass a law that states if you make campaign promises and you don't try to fulfill them, and show in a court of law that you tried to do this and you tried to do that and you tried to do this, but the process didn't go through, or you didn't get enough votes, but you at least have to prove that you tried. And if you don't, you lose your job. You're instantly kicked out of office. That's why realistically what we should have is a system set up where a politician has to make all their records public. Your income tax, your banking statements, all of it. And if there's ever proven corruption, or that you took money from a lobbyist, or you did this, or you scammed, or you embezzled, you go to jail. No ifs, ands, or buts. No nothing. You go to jail. But that goes back to the division.
Listening to NPR this morning, morning edition. So Brian Green, I think is his name, David Green is on there talking to somebody from the Republican Party, talking about what sort of influence Cambridge Analytica had. He said, well, I don't think they had any influence. Like, well, okay, well, and so they didn't think they had any influence in the general election. Like, well, okay, well, what about before? Did they help out? He's like, well, maybe. As far as I saw, that they put $5 million of ad placements. So in the grand scheme of things, with billions of dollars at play between the Clinton and Trump campaign, $5 million's a drop in the well. Not even a drop in a bucket, drop in the well. $5 million, but $100,000 from Russian trolls is enough to flip it. Are you fucking insane? So let's go back. Not only is $100,000 1/100% of $1 billion of what Clinton spent. I've even heard estimates as far as high as $2 billion, which would make it 1/200th of 1%. But let's take this back. So Russian trolls that did 1/100th of 1% of Clinton somehow flipped the narrative, and yet you've got $5 million. So how much is $1 million more than 100,000? Well, that's 10. So 50 times the amount of money of what Russia did, and it's a drop in the well. But somehow Russian trolls are an existential crisis to our way of life. What in the fuck is wrong with us? Can you imagine if we were to, but Russia, what if we were to change that to, but the Jews, but Mexicans, but the Italians, but the Arabs? I mean, give me a fucking break. What the hell is wrong with us? We have some messed up values.
This one is something very close to my heart because I am a cook and sometimes I am a chef, and I've been a manager and a general manager and a server, and I've done all of the different possible jobs you can have. I've even had a fast food job for about 6 months. So one thing I'd like to point out is that if you adjust for inflation, in 1970, the minimum wage was $9 an hour. And now the minimum wage is $7.25.
Yep.
Obama tried to bump that back up to 10.10, and I don't think it went through. Did it go through?
No.
Not quite sure. Yeah, I don't think it did. No. Although some states have decided to go ahead and go up on their own, but there's only 29 of those. So 70% of fast food workers are over the age of 20. Did you guys realize that?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I know. Yeah, lots of fast food workers are not just for teenagers like the Republicans like to spin.
No, they are not. And some, if not higher, in restaurants, retail jobs, etc., it's the same thing. I've worked, like I said, I've worked in so many different restaurants. I've even had retail jobs before. And there are people in there trying to raise their family. There aren't teenagers who don't know anything else besides flipping burgers. And it's actually a craft that deserves a lot more credit. And there is the chance for upward mobility in a restaurant, but what that ends up giving you is, but depending on the city you're in, $40,000 to $80,000, but you give up 80 to 90 hours of your week. You basically go into work at noon or earlier. You don't get out until midnight or later. You have zero life. Sometimes you even only get one day off. I've worked in restaurants where you're not allowed to clock in until 2:30 p.m., but you have to show up at noon to get your work done. And if you want to keep that job, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You get that?
Well,
they actually,
yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, the thing is retail jobs, like you were talking about, the type of work that you're talking about, you end up putting in as many, if not more hours than the CEO who's on salary and makes $125,000 a year.
Yeah, usually more. Now, there's a catch to that. I mean, sometimes you have a restaurateur who's really all in on it, and you see them there more often than all of their employees. And I understand that. Those are usually the tiny mom and pops that employ 6 or 7 people. And those are technically the best places to go work if you're trying to look for a higher wage, because they don't have many employees. But outside of that, the next best thing is to go to a chain restaurant, because they can actually afford to pay people a living wage. But that's not necessarily the case when you're talking about fast food. If you look at McDonald's, they've just now started to try to raise their wage, but their wage is still too low. And they still have people working 40 hours a week and making ends meet with welfare.
Yeah.
Get that? So that means that McDonald's is making a profit off of your and my hard-paid tax dollars that go towards that welfare. They're basically leveraging the government in order to maintain profit upward mobility.
So he was excited. So, I've got a pretty good rapport with this guy. And so you can tell, he was excited to hear from me. And,
hey, can you pause real quick and say those last 2 lines again? I got a total beer crack in the background.
Sorry.
Yep, I heard it.
I was trying to be quiet.
It's okay. So speaking of eating babies, that is fantastic.
Excuse me.
We love
What they do is
any.
that is fantastic.
Excuse me.
Infrastructure.
He's on, maybe I'm kind of jumping the gun here. So
I didn't fart. The check's in the mail. I won't come in your mouth, and USA is number one.